Okay, so let me first introduce John Faust. He's the Democratic candidate for the 10th District. He has served on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors and is currently the Drainesville District Supervisor. He grew up in Pennsylvania and put himself through college working in steel mills and eventually in law school. His wife is a well-respected OBGYN, and they live in McLean with their 2 sons.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been a real pleasure to participate in the League's events around the district. So I am John Faust. I'm on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. I've been there for 7 years. We do things differently in Fairfax. You know, I think I probably wouldn't get much argument if I were to say that Congress is broken, it's too dysfunctional, too partisan, and they're not really moving our country forward and doing the things we need done as a nation to make for a better future. We do it differently in Fairfax. We work together, we come together, we have Democrats and Republicans on the board, but it's difficult to tell which is which most of the time. We are problem solvers. We put the public interest ahead of partisanship. And so that's what I will bring to Washington. On the board, I have participated in balancing 7 budgets in very difficult times. As vice chairman of the budget committee and chairman of the audit committee, I've worked to find millions and millions of dollars of items that could be cut and efficiencies that could be made. This has allowed us to continue to invest in things that are important to our constituents, like education and infrastructure. In Washington, I will focus on a jobs agenda. I believe we need to invest in job creators like infrastructure, education, research and development. On education, I want to focus on all levels. I was the first member of my family to go to college, and I did work in the steel mills to get my pay for my education. I value education, and I will be an education advocate. I will also work to protect a woman's right to make her own health care choices. This is something that's been under an attack forever by the Republicans and the extreme right, and it's unacceptable. I'm pleased to be here with my fellow candidates. I'm disappointed that once again, the Republican candidate, Barbara Comstock, has decided to hide from you and hide from the press and not participate in these events. Thank you very much. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Faust. The next is William Redpath. Mr. Redpath is a Libertarian candidate for the 10th District. He currently works as a business appraiser, a Virginia resident since 1985. Mr. Redpath has a BA from Indiana University and an MBA from the University of Chicago. He ran as a Libertarian candidate for governor in 2001, for the Senate in 2008, and the U.S. House of Representatives in 2010. He is the former national chairman of the Libertarian Party and the current chair of the Libertarian Party of Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Bill Redpath, the Libertarian candidate for U.S. House of Representatives in the 10th Congressional District this year. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me to this debate. They have treated me much more nicely than some other organizations in Northern Virginia. Specifically, the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce excluded me from their debate September 3rd, as they did Diane Blay and Brad Eicholt. Same with the Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce, September 24th. And it's too bad. I think that all of the people of the 10th District deserve to hear from all of the candidates, and I think it's great that the League of Women Voters has included all of the candidates, or at least invited all of the candidates to participate in this. The Libertarian Party is the largest third party in the United States. It is a combination of conservative positions on economic issues and liberal positions on social issues. But there is one common theme, and that is we want to reduce the use of government coercion in society. Consequently, we want to reduce taxes because coercion is used to collect taxes. To do that, we have to reduce government spending, and we want to have real respect for civil liberties. And the Libertarian Party is making great strides here in Virginia in particular, with Robert Sarvis, our candidate for governor last year, turned right around, is running for U.S. Senate this year. We have 7 candidates for U.S. House of Representatives. I am one of them. That is a record for the Libertarian Party of Virginia. The Libertarian Party in 6 of the last 7 U.S. House elections has earned over 1 million votes nationwide for U.S. House of Representatives. And the last minor party to do that, they have to go all the way back to 1925 before this 6 out of 7 streak. Additionally, top of ticket in midterm elections, other than the Republicans and Democrats, no party in the history of this nation during a midterm election has earned over 1.5 million votes for top of ticket, which is governor, if there's a governor's election, U.S. Senate if there's not, mayor in D.C., 5 states where there are no U.S. Senate or governor elections this year, and we have candidates for 37 to 51 of those elections. We think we will top not just 1.5 million, but over 2 million votes. I look forward to fleshing out my positions during the question and answer period. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Redpath. Next is Diane Bay. She is the independent Green Party candidate for the 10th District. She was a 2011 independent candidate for District 40 of the Virginia House of Delegates. Her professional experience includes working as the vice president of a privately held company. She earned her BA in economics from the University of Mary Washington.
Hi, I'm Diane Blay of the Independent Green Party. And the Independent Green Party's website is entitled votejoinrun.us. And the mottos are more candidates, less apathy, more trains, less traffic, fiscally conservative, socially responsible. Green parties now exist in most countries with democratic systems. The first candidate for president of the United States of the Green Party of the United States was Ralph Nader, who has done much to promote green issues. While going through the Green Party's platform, which is gp.org, I found the following, which I would like to read. Our current economic system is gravely flawed. It is unjust and unsustainable because it is premised on endless economic growth and destruction of nature. Our government's top economic goal, increasing gross domestic product, impels us to perpetually intensify our resource use and environmental destruction. Green economic policy places value on the things which truly makes life worth living. Our health, our relationships, our communities, our environment, and building peace and justice throughout the nation and the world. We must end the colossal waste of taxpayer funds for arms and war. We must reduce our nation's federal debt and fund our environmental and social needs. We support using the tax system to bring more equality to our nation. Rising income equality makes us poor in myriad ways. More equal societies are happier, healthier, safer, and greener. I am running to do what I can to improve our country and the world. I believe that Congress should not be a life position. No one should be in Congress for more than 12 years. And I'd bring a needed, fresh perspective.
Thank you, Diane. The next is Brad Eichhold. He's the independent candidate for the 10th District. He works as a project manager, graduated from Clark County High School, and received a BA in political science from Washington and Jefferson College. He's been working for Northrop Grumman for the past 8 years. His wife, Diana Lay, and he have 4 children.
Thank you. At the many AARP and League of Women Voter events, as well as others across the district, I have discussed my vision, why I'm in this race, and the issues that I believe Congress should be working on right now. Tax reform, entitlement reform, immigration reform, and even more importantly, campaign finance reform and putting an end to gerrymandering. As always, I encourage you to watch the videos of these events on YouTube. You can find a link to them on my website, on my Facebook page, Eichhold for Congress. But today I'm going to talk about the direction of this race. As you have all seen from the ads, this race has moved away from one of ideas. one that talks about solutions to the myriad problems facing our country today. Instead, it has devolved into just another mudfest, a race that merely tries to scare voters away from the opponent rather than attract voters on the merits of one's ideas. Well, that has not been the case with our campaign. On the contrary, from the time I was collecting signatures, a lot of which I got right here in Leesburg at the farmers market, to each of these AARP and League of Women Voters events, to the many other events where I've spoken right next to the other candidates, I consistently have folks coming up and telling me, thank you, and you were making the most sense of any of the candidates up there. That's a direct quote, by the way. It is our message of building consensus and working together to solve problems that people not only want to hear, but what they want us to put into action. So what's been the trouble with our campaign? Without the ability to raise the same amounts of money as my opponents, we simply have not been able to reach the number of voters it's going to take to win this election. But today I have a solution to that problem. Today I'm asking John Faust to withdraw from this race and give us his endorsement. I am not asking this because I think he is going to lose, although his own party seems to think so, since they have pulled the funding for an ad buy that they initially had targeted for our race. Nor am I asking based on the issues, because on many of the major issues he and I agree. Instead, I am asking because I believe that even he believes in our message. I am asking because I think he has the vision, the foresight, and the courage to understand that there is an independent movement brewing in this nation, and that by this act he can nurture this spark into a full-blown raging fire. And when the next chapters of Profiles in Courage are written, it will not be my name that is immortalized there, but instead a man who had the courage to put aside his own political aspirations to do what is best for the country. With his support, I'll skip to the end, we can win this for the American people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And this begins our Q&A portion of the program. And perhaps we can address the issue, starting with Mr. Faust, of whether or not a candidate should withdraw when the... Okay, that's okay. That's all right. Whether should a candidate withdraw based upon the sort of the political winds that are blowing, that kind of thing.
I was once flattered by someone in the Libertarian Party who said that Bill Redpath doesn't ask someone to do something that he's not willing to do himself. And I'm not willing to withdraw from this race. I'm here as the Libertarian Party candidate. It's important for the party. It's important that there be a Libertarian voice in this election, in my opinion. So I'm not willing to withdraw, and I'm not going to ask anybody else to withdraw.
Thank you. Here's a question from an audience member. This person says, this question was going to be for Barbara Comstock, but since she is not here, I ask that John Faust answer, and I also invite any other candidate who'd like to answer the question as well, following John. Doesn't signing the Grover Norquist pledge mean that even before you get to Congress, you have eliminated many possibilities for compromise, working across the aisle, and coming up with the best solution to a problem?
Thank you. I have to respond. I am not going to withdraw, but I do recognize and appreciate all the candidates in this race. It has been really interesting and an educational experience to have these debates and to have all the different views expressed. It's a really good thing, and I'm glad we have as many candidates in the race as we do. The Grover Norquist tax pledge is wrong on so many levels. For our elected official, Barbara Comstock, who we elect, and we expect her to give her loyalty and her complete efforts to us and our priorities. For her to go out and sign a pledge to a guy by the name of Grover Norquist, who happens to run an organization in Washington, D.C., and holds elected officials accountable all over this nation, That's wrong. And I'm not the only one who thinks it's wrong. Barbara Comstock likes to cloak herself in Frank Wolf's reputation and history. Frank Wolf went on the floor of the House of Representatives, and he tore into Grover Norquist. He knows, like we know, that you can't have some pledge to some person other than your constituents deciding how you're going to vote. And because of that pledge, Barbara Comstock voted against a bipartisan transportation bill in Northern Virginia that is a game changer and that is going to be make all the difference in terms of the congestion and the traffic problems we have in this region. But she couldn't vote for it. She couldn't vote along with the governor of her own party and many, many members of her own party who supported that bill because she pledged to Grover Norquist that she would vote against it. That's wrong. We can't have that. That's what's wrong with Congress today. Too extreme, too partisan, too many people signing pledges to Grover Norquist. Thank you.
Thank you. This is another question from an audience member. As a member of Results, an organization called Results, I am concerned about issues of poverty, both global and domestic. Frank Wolf has been a leader on child survival. Would you continue his legacy by protecting and increasing funding for poverty-focused programs such as girls' education, health systems, crises, and tax credits for the working poor? Sure. You want me to read it?
I think we got the gist. I haven't heard of Results myself. I know Bread for the World has been very actively involved in this campaign, and those are the issues. So I just wanted to say something about the Green Party. I'm here because I think the Green Party has so many issues. I mean, we want no one to not to be able to survive, to have the basic necessities. We all should have that. The stress that it places on people is so detrimental to our society. So we don't want churches necessarily. We want to rely on churches to feed people. We want people to just know that they will have that. And if we had the wealthy, this economy that we have with this huge, enormous wealth at the top, if we taxed it, we could pay. It's minimal cost to provide basic necessities for people. So I want them to have that.
I am concerned about issues of poverty, both global and domestic. Frank Wolf has been a leader on child survival. Would you continue his legacy by protecting and increasing funding for poverty-focused programs such as girls' education, health systems, and tax credits for the working poor?
I believe in all of that right up until the tax credits for the working poor, only because my stance is I'm a flat tax person and I want to get rid of all of the credits and deductions. And even though this is a wonderful reason for us to think, well, let's give them a credit, once you open the door to credits or deductions, then you open the floodgates for everyone to say, well, now I want my group to have a credit or a deduction. So right up until the end there, I was with you on of course, supporting, people who are in poverty. I think all too often we demonize those folks as just saying, oh, they don't want to get up and do anything, and I think that's completely wrong. So I do want to work on poverty issues, hunger issues. She mentioned Bread for the World. They have ideas about how we can feed twice as many people, not domestically, but in other countries, with the same amount of money by simply reforming the way that we provide the food. Instead of growing the food here, buying food that we grow here, shipping it overseas, selling it over there, and then using the proceeds to benefit the local economies, we just take the same money and buy the food over there. It supports the farmers and the groups over there and puts food directly in the mouths of the people and feeds twice as many people with the same amount of money. That's the kind of issue. To me, it fits both parties great, because the Republicans would say we're using our tax dollars better, and Democrats would say we're feeding twice as many people. So those are the type of issues. When I say I want to build consensus, there's lots of areas like that where we can agree and we can actually get things done. Those are the kind of things I'll be working on. Thank you.
A question for all again. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, Frank Wolf does deserve a lot of credit for his work in this area. I absolutely will stay focused on those issues. I mean, poverty is something that, is reality, but it's also something we can do something about. And in particular, you mentioned the tax credits, the low-income tax credits for the working poor are one of the best, I think, programs that we have as a nation gotten behind in terms of helping to lift people out of poverty. And the beauty of it is something where we actually can come together as Democrats and Republicans. The support is bipartisan, and it will lead, if we continue to focus on that, it will create the opportunity for a lot of people to come out of poverty. We've got to deal with a Congress that has targets programs that are intended to help the most needy amongst us, like food stamps. The cuts that were made were unconscionable, but in the meantime, they want to give tax breaks to the super wealthy and the special interests. So we as a nation need to focus on and realize that we can help lift people from poverty. We've got to create the jobs, the opportunity. We've got to make sure they get the education they need. We can do so much better in this area, and I look forward to doing that when I get to Congress. Thank you.
The word increase funding, I believe, was a part of the question. I'll answer no to that. I think that it is appropriate. That is not something that is appropriate for the federal government to be involved in, even though it is. There are dozens, I mean, it's a high two-digit number, scores, literally, of means-tested federal anti-poverty programs that are already in place. We've been fighting this war on poverty since it was declared by Lyndon Johnson a half-century ago. It hasn't come close to putting an end to poverty in the United States. I think a far better approach, and by the way, I'll have to respectfully disagree with Mr. Faust. I don't think there were draconian cuts to SNAP. There were at most minor cuts to a program where expenditures have grown greatly over the past several years. And I think that this is appropriate for the states to address, the private organizations, not the federal government. We have to say no to some things. And as much as I want everybody to have a good life, to have a long life, healthy life, have shelter, have food, where does all this come from? Of course, we want them to have these things. Where does it come from? It'd be best to have the states address this issue, to have 51, including DC, laboratories of democracy out there. Mankind advances through trial and error. Let's devolve this responsibility to the states. Have states try different things in fighting poverty, see what works, see what doesn't work. We have to begin saying no to some things, because right now, the economy, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. And even when it's pretty good, we're running a $500 billion a year budget deficit. If we don't get this under control, within the foreseeable future, we'll all be poor.
Thank you. We do have a good supply of questions from the audience on these cards, but if anybody has a burning question, just raise your hand and I can call on you. What practical ideas do you have for improving productivity within the U.S. House of Representatives? 12% approval is not respectable.
Oh, I swear people are teeing me up for these things. This is exactly what I want to do. As an independent, I think I would be in the perfect position to build consensus between the two parties. I was raised Republican, my family is Republican, and they think I'm the black sheep for my liberal leanings. But, you know, I do have those as well, so I think I speak very eloquently to both sides. I actually understand the points of view of both of the parties. I think that's one thing that's missing in the House of Representatives these days. It seems like the two sides can't even understand why the other side believes what they do. I understand that. I could go into one room and say, okay, listen, here's what we're looking for. Where can you bend here a little bit? Go into the other side. Here's what we're looking for. Where can you bend a little bit? And actually try to get some things done. Beyond that, I actually believe there are lots of areas throughout the federal government where there are problems that have solutions that we all agree on the solution. However, all too often, the solutions to those get rolled up into big bills that have so many things in them that we don't agree anymore, so that bill doesn't get passed and that problem doesn't get solved. The Bread for the World thing I was talking about, it passed the House of Representatives, it failed, and it didn't fail in the Senate, it got rolled into a big bill that never got passed. It is exactly that kind of thing that we need to fix. I think we need small, targeted pieces of legislation that fix one problem at a time, stop arguing continuously about ideology, and let's actually get some things done. Thank you. Which way are we going? I guess you said you...
Well, I think one of the reasons there's so much polarization on Capitol Hill is because of campaign financing. Our representatives spend all their time raising money, and they're biased by who gives them what on how they're going to vote, and they don't do the best for their country. So that is what I would think is a major key. And although the Green Party is very perhaps radical in lots of positions, we realize we have to accommodate other positions, and so we would want to do that.
It is a real shame, and it's an embarrassment, and it's disappointing that the Congress of the United States has an approval rating of 12%. That's the highest I've heard in a while, actually. But it's in that range. And that is very, very unfortunate for our country. It wasn't always that way. And the difference is, in my opinion, that before the last, I don't know whether it's 20 years, but certainly the last 10 years, the partisanship has become so extreme. And it's hard to respect anyone who goes to Washington and just refuses to compromise, refuses to work across the aisle, and who gets essentially nothing done other than demonizing the other side of the aisle. So this is where we've got to make changes. The most significant thing we could do, the biggest improvement we could possibly make would be to go to nonpartisan redistricting. Right now, you have so many congressional districts in this country where the representative is basically selected in the primary or the primary process, and the participants in that process are the most extreme left wing or the most extreme right wing members of their party. And that is giving us a situation where you get people in Washington who are constantly worried about being primaried. We've seen it here with Eric Cantor. He apparently wasn't worried about it, but he should have been. So this is the type of fundamental change it's going to take. In the interim, we need to send people to Washington who will work across the aisle and work and respect the other side. And I intend to do that. Thank you.
Nonpartisan gerrymandering is district drawing is a step in the right direction, but it does not go far enough. The two major parties in this nation are propped up because of our voting system. Single-member plurality voting. Single-member legislative district, person with the most votes wins. And political scientists will tell you that the natural result of that is two dominant parties, both running for the center, and I realize there are non-trivial differences, but I think largely that's true. They're both running for the center, trying to offend as few people as possible so they can win these single-member district elections. And it leads to all sorts of problems. The dysfunction on Capitol Hill is just one thing. In Virginia last year for the Virginia House of Delegates, do you know out of 100 single-member districts, does anybody in this audience know, except the people who've heard me ask this before, how many of those 100 single-member districts had only one candidate on the ballot for House of Delegates last year? One, not one challenger, one candidate. Not you, you probably heard. The answer is 45. 45. Think that's bad? In 2011, 2 years before that, it was 63. If you don't believe me, go to the State Board of Elections website, check it out for yourself. We need multi-member legislative districts to give people better choice. I'm on the board of Fair Vote, fairvote.org. There are fair representation systems for U.S. House of Representatives where there, instead of 11 single-member districts, you might have 3 districts with 4, 4, and 3, or something like that in Virginia, where you'd have more choice. You'd throw more Republicans, more Democrats into the mix, but the best idea is genuine, in my opinion, genuinerepresentation.org/Congress. I will repeat that, genuinerepresentation.org/Congress, whereas there is a plan called personally accountable representation, where you would be able to select, with more choice, select a representative who will represent you and your ideas and negotiate on your behalf. When you have representatives who are sent there to negotiate on everybody's behalf, this has worked in the real world in very difficult circumstances, and the results go to Congress, the compromises go to Congress, and they die. So genuinerepresentation.org/Congress for a truly useful, productive idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We do have a burning question from the audience, back here in the second row.
I've never done this before, so do I stand, do I sit? Stand. Okay, please forgive me if you see me shaking. All right, so, good evening. I moved from Leesburg to Round Hill last year and was shocked when we got our first water bill. It was $700 for 2 months. We had no idea our water bills were triple by moving 15 minutes down the road. We have cut back dramatically on our water usage and are still paying $100 more a month than we used to pay. Some of my neighbors have told me they pay anywhere from $250 to $500 every two months. We started a Facebook page a few weeks ago called Round Hill Community for Lower Water Rates, which now has over 174 members and growing by the week. We've already passed out almost 1,000 flyers to most of the homes in Round Hill. We've basically are planning a meeting at Bluemont Community Center on October 23rd at 6:30. Right now, we live outside of the town. We have no vote. We would like to see a reduction of rates for both in and out-of-town residents. The main reason for this request is the new construction of homes that Round Hill is growing. There's currently... Well, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I had a few minutes to give you a little bit of background. Okay, so my question is, for the communities that are struggling to pay for water and sewer because the rates are set too high, how can you help us? We're mainly looking for options. There's got to be some other options or solutions for people that are in this predicament. Right.
Ma'am, other than digging a well, I'm stumped. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the situation, nor would that be a federal issue, in my opinion, so I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the situation. I don't know enough facts to comment intelligently.
With respect to your specific question, I feel I'm in the same boat. We had for a long time an issue in my district, Drainesville District in Fairfax County, where we had, well, actually, there was about 100,000 residents being served from Falls Church City. They were getting their water from Falls Church. And, the issue just went on, and people complained, but finally we took leadership on it and were able to eventually consolidate Falls Church City with Fairfax Water, and the rates for Fairfax residents served by Falls Church are going down as a consequence. So it's not the greatest analogy, and I don't know the specifics of your issue, but I would work with the people who represent you is the number one thing. People will come, it doesn't matter what the issue is. As a local representative, bring them the issue and ask them to be your advocate and help you work through the problem. That's the best advice I can give you. Thank you.
Can I answer? Unfortunately, I have to concur with Bill and John here. I had not heard of this issue, nor do I completely understand why that would be the case. Although, Miss, if you could leave me your email address, I will certainly look into the issue and see if there are any solutions that are available. So I will talk to her after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Question from the audience. We hear a lot of talk about immigration reform. What is your idea of immigration reform?
I believe in comprehensive immigration reform. I believe that the United States Senate, via a lot of compromise and coming together in a bipartisan way, passed a bill that would move our country forward and go a long way toward addressing the challenges we have with immigration. Unfortunately, that bill was sent over to the House of Representatives, and it did not get passed. Basically, the Senate bill dramatically increased border security, internal security within the country, but also created a way for undocumented immigrants to gain legal status and ultimately earn citizenship. It also provided a way for to manage the H-1B process better so that we can start taking advantage of the talent that comes here and gets an education in the United States, but has to return home to compete against us in the international global economy. So it was a compromise. It was something that was passed in a bipartisan way out of the United States Senate. It is an issue that needs to be resolved, and I think they had a formula there for us to work with. And unfortunately, it languished and died in the House.
Yes, as a libertarian, I definitely support immigration reform. I think that if someone does not have a serious communicable disease, which is going to become a more important issue, it appears here in the near term, but if they don't have a serious communicable disease, if they do not have a criminal background, if they are not reasonably deemed a security threat, they ought to be able to immigrate to the United States and get a work visa, bring people up out of the shadow economy, and have a reasonable path to citizenship. And I think that this plan would greatly benefit the United States. Now, I will say that I recently heard of an alternative plan in Canada, where the provinces in Canada actually decide what immigrants they want to individually accept. And I thought that was when I first heard that, I said, that's a crazy idea. But actually, I heard a Reason Foundation webinar on this. And it was a very interesting presentation because different provinces in Canada have different needs in terms of people. Some need higher skilled people, some need lower skilled people. And it's impossible. If you are a Mexican without skills and without family connections in the United States, it is impossible. It is literally impossible to legally immigrate to the United States. And this problem about securing the borders has to go hand in hand with legal immigration reform, because you cannot tell someone to go get in a line when there is no line. And that's why we are having problems securing the borders, because there is not a workable immigration system to address the desires and needs of people who simply want to move here, live and work peacefully, and build a better life for themselves. And that's what immigration reform needs to do. It's the right thing for those people, but it will also be the right thing for the United States. It will benefit the economy. This nation will be better off in the long run.
The Green Party would ultimately like totally open borders, but to get there, we have to do some things. We have to stop this drug war that we have going on, which affects so many people in the Latin American countries. We have to try to get jobs, more jobs in our country, more research and development about energy, so we can be self-supporting. So we can increase so many more jobs here that people don't mind if the immigrants come in. And also, if we got a better economic system worldwide, not so many people would be coming in. So.
I do believe this is a problem. There's lots of situations here that need to be corrected. A lot of them were touched on here. It is an economic problem, particularly from countries coming from the South. We are not going to stem the tide of people streaming in from the South unless we do whatever we can to try to help the economies and the political systems that are in those countries so that people will stop trying to come here. Number two, we do have to secure the border. We cannot just allow people to come, for lack of a better word, sneaking across the border. It is a security risk. We, as far as we know, haven't had terrorists coming in from the southern border, but they could seemingly at any time, so we need to do that. We also need to build, almost touched on this, we need to address the quotas. There are quotas for every country around the world about how many people can immigrate into the United States. We need to look into that and try to raise some of those numbers, because like he said, for a lot of countries, there is no line for them to get in to try to immigrate to the United States. And finally, which nobody addressed, I believe in a pathway to citizenship for the 17 million people that are here. And I think a lot of people agree with that. In a recent poll, people were asked if they support a pathway to citizenship, and 53% of people said yes. That is not an overwhelming number. However, when a pathway to citizenship was explained to mean that the people would pay a fine, they would pay all their back taxes, they would pass a security background check, and they would wait some period of time, that number went up to 72%. 72% is a huge number in this country. I think Congress needs to get to work, stop kicking the can till back after the next election, because nobody wants to deal with it anymore. 72% of the people will agree if you just explain to them what you are trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with questions that have been submitted from the audience, unless someone would like to speak a question. Yes.
But I'm very happy to see the other representatives who I think have added a great deal of information as well as integrity to the entire process. My question is, in the present-day Congress of the United States, which congressman or senator do you think best reflects your views?
Bernie Sanders is without a doubt the guy that we think represents us. He recognizes all the problems that the Green Party recognizes and fights to change. And there is a drive to have him run for president. So we will see how that works. But first of all, there aren't that many independents. So and as you know, I think you know, the Green Party is totally against the wars that we have been involved in recently. So.
In the current Congress, I'd have to say Justin Amash. I believe that's how his last name is pronounced, from Michigan. He's a Republican congressman from Michigan. It's interesting that Ron Paul is no longer in, of course, he was the Libertarian presidential candidate in 1988, and a man of integrity. And it's interesting that with Justin Amash, he was primaried this year, but basically the Chamber of Commerce in his district, which includes Grand Rapids, selected a more mainstream Republican, and Amash won the primary and will, I presume, will be reelected to the U.S. House of Representatives. But I think he's a man of integrity. It's interesting. They say, how can Congress change? Well, it's up to the individuals in Congress to change Congress. I remember one story I was told by somebody on Ron Paul's staff when he was in the U.S. House of Representatives. He says the lobbyists just eventually stopped coming past the office because they knew they were going to be talking with Ron Paul when they got there. So they just stopped coming by. They weren't going to waste their time. We need more people like that in Congress, and I think Justin Amash fits the bill right now to the greatest extent.
Yeah, I believe that we have two very good United States senators in Tim Kaine and Mark Warner. I'm proud to have both their endorsements. I particularly like the way Mark Warner has taken a bipartisan approach to his service in the United States Senate. I like, someone who's new, but I think has brought a really fresh approach, and that is a congressman from Maryland by the name of John Delaney. John has, he definitely left his partisanship at the door. He is in there working to find bipartisan solutions to major challenges that we face. In particular, his expertise, I would say, is infrastructure. And he's gotten Democrats and Republicans to come together as a freshman. So I respect that, and all three of them are good. So I'm not sure which one stands above the other, but they're all good. Thank you.
I'm having a hard time coming up with a current member of Congress. I think that partly has to do with, people ask me all the time, well, why are you running as an independent? Why don't you just pick one of the two parties and, you'll have a much better chance of winning then. And I say, if one of the two parties was to decide that they were no longer going to back candidates who ran the type of campaigns that we see all the time, including in this race, where you just bash the other person into submission and don't talk about yourself or your ideas. All you do is talk about being a right-winger or saying that John Faust hates women or something. It's ridiculous, okay? Both of those are completely ridiculous. He doesn't hate women any more than Barbara Comstock thinks that immigrants are FedEx packages. It's just all stupid. So if one of the two parties was to say that they were no longer going to support that kind of campaign, then I would get behind one of the two parties. To answer your question, I would say there's two people. It would be candidate Barack Obama and candidate George W. Bush. I know that sounds crazy, but I voted for George W. Bush in 2000 because he came in saying he was going to do that. He was going to change the way politics works. We're going to go out there and we're going to, build consensus, and that's what he was saying. You can go back to 2000 in the first race, and that's what he was saying. And I thought, whoa, here's the guy. Let's end partisanship. Let's get things done. That's what he was going to do. And Barack Obama said the same thing. He brought in people who no longer voted, who were out of the political process. He won in a landslide because the two-party bases split, and he brought home the people who don't vote anymore. So Where's that guy? I think he let the Democratic Party just take over again. I can't speak for what George W. Bush did. That's a whole nother story. I don't have time for that. I'm on the stop signal, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. That was actually the next one on my list. Okay. This is a wide open question, but we haven't had one on foreign policy yet. Anything on foreign policy, and I assume of the current administration, that you oppose?
Yes. It's time for Congress to take back the war power. The founders correctly decided that declaring war should be a committee decision. It should not be put in the hands of a single person. It's that simple. So I am opposed to the bombing of ISIS, a despicable group. Wouldn't want to be living over there by any means. But if we're going to do it, it needs to be through an act of Congress. The president should only respond to protect the United States and the people and property in it when it is not possible to get a declaration of war from Congress. Otherwise, he needs to be responsible. Enough of the imperial presidency on foreign policy issues. It needs to go to Congress for decisions like this to be made. So I'm opposed to all of these unilateral actions where President Obama says he thinks he has the authority. I don't know where that comes from. It doesn't come from the U.S. Constitution, I'll tell you that much.
Well, Malala, who just she won the Nobel Peace Prize, is sharing it, said, "I don't want the drones, don't send drones, send books." She wants education. I think we've totally gone in the wrong direction on our foreign policy.
I believe in parts of what Bill and Diane said there. I do think we overuse our military, although to some extent when it comes to ISIS, I do think there is a military aspect to defeating ISIS. That is not going to be the final solution. The final solution is political. If without a government in Iraq and Syria that respects the minority opinion, we are always going to have groups like ISIS spawning out of that because they're not represented in their government. And so how do they get back power? They do it with arms. And so there is some aspect to slowing them down, to making sure they aren't, slaughtering innocent people. When it comes to one thing that we have long done, and it is not going to sound popular, I think, but our endless support for Israel, bombing the Palestinians and killing civilians is just wrong. There's no other way around it. I understand they are trying to defend themselves. I understand they are having missiles launched into their country. However, if the long-term goal is to have them stop firing missiles into your country, the solution to that problem is not going to be killing innocent civilians. That might work right now, but you are only creating more people who want to launch missiles into your country. It's never going to work that way. And for us to continuously block resolutions in the UN that when all of the other countries in the world would like to condemn them, but we're blocking it because our politicians think that you're not allowed to say anything bad against Israel, to me, that's wrong. It's been wrong for a long time. Thank you.
The ISIS situation is a good example. I agree that the president should go to Congress and get authorization for these types of actions. What is being done, I do support. I think we have to destroy ISIS. I think it's evil. And it is a danger not only to the region, but to the entire, certainly to the United States, ultimately. But we got to remember, whenever the president was trying to make a decision on how to deal with the ISIS crisis, I would call it, and decisions had to be made, the Congress went into recess. And they all went home. And the only time we saw them for the next couple of weeks was on Sunday on talk shows criticizing the president for dealing with ISIS. You know, it's a two-way street. They've got to work together. The president and the Congress have got to work together to create or to get back to a constitutional approach to dealing with the war powers and dealing with those types of issues. So that's where I'm at on it. I think he's pushing his authority further than I would like to see him push it. I want to see the Congress step up and play the role it was intended to play. Thank you.
Thank you. This is probably our final question based upon our timing. It's well documented that women currently earn approximately 75 cents for every dollar earned by men for the same work. This amount has only increased by 3 cents in the last 20 years. Do you support equal pay for equal work? Why or why not?
Yes, of course. There are so many facets of this discussion and so many ideas of what to do about it. I mean, STEMtastics is a program I've been involved in. It's trying to get women into the science, technology, engineering, and math fields. But the Paycheck Fairness Act has the first act that Obama signed when he got into the presidency was the Lilly Ledbetter Act, so as it's called, and there were a couple of problems with it. So we are trying to get it changed and just to correct that. So of course we want that to go into effect too, and Congress has been sitting on that as it has so many things.
Well, I do support equal pay for equal work. However, I would be wary of a new law trying to solve that problem. I think all too often we try to legislate solutions to problems and we end up causing more problems down the road. In this case, I would have a concern about how you implement such a law. What would it now require from every business, large and small, to assure that a woman is getting paid what a man would get paid for the same amount of work? Now we're defining an awful lot about what that job is and how you do it. It is already illegal to discriminate against women. So if you are able to find that you are not getting paid the same as a man, then I think you should already be able to sue for that. I do think there is one problem with that. If I remember correctly, there is some tiny statute of limitations for bringing up such a suit, so you have to bring the suit within, some small amount of time or when it started happening or something. No matter what, I can't remember exactly the details, but there is a small issue with being able to bring suit for such a thing. If we can fix that, I would fix that, but right now I don't think we should write any more laws about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely support equal pay for equal work. The Paycheck Fairness Act, it is the law that the equal pay. But enforcing that law is extraordinarily difficult because employers don't share information about how much someone is getting paid, and they'll discriminate against you or penalize you if you pursue that question. So, we need to just create an equal playing field where employees can actually talk amongst themselves about what they're being paid. If it is demonstrated that a man is being paid more than a woman for the same equal work, then that woman should know that, and she should be able to enforce her right to equal pay. So it's that simple. There's nothing more fundamental than treating people equally, eliminating discrimination everywhere, especially in the workforce. And so I do support it. And I do want you to know, since, Barbara Comstock has not appeared and will not appear in these types of forums, what she has said about equal pay for equal work. She said, equal pay for equal work is a left-wing agenda. Yeah, I mean, think about that. She also said that real women, that's her quote, real women don't care about equal pay for equal work. So these are the types of reasons why you don't see Barbara Comstock at these events. She cannot defend her record, and she's trying to confuse everyone. Thank you.
Well, it was fortunate to come last because it allowed me to find a column on my phone that was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday on this very topic. The man's name is Gerald Skoning. I believe he's a labor attorney, is a labor and employment lawyer in Chicago. And he writes in his Wall Street Journal column here, let me go back to the point here. As a campaign issue, demands for pay equity are beside the point. Equal pay for women has been the law of the land for more than a half century. Democrats say we need another new federal statute to protect women because the existing panoply of federal and state laws prohibiting pay discrimination on the basis of gender are insufficient. Specifically, they have continued to press for passage of the Paycheck Fairness Act, which according to its congressional sponsors would provide more effective remedies to victims of discrimination in the payment of wages on the basis of sex. In reality, this bill would expand litigation opportunities for class action lawyers seeking millions of dollars from companies without ever having to prove that the companies intentionally discriminated against women. The Paycheck Fairness Act instead is meant to address the fact that on average, full-time working women earn just 77 cents for every dollar a man earns, as the Obama White House explains on its website. This is not a claim that any woman earns less than any man for the same work. Pay, quote, disparities, unquote, between men and women generally reflect other factors such as interrupting a career to raise children, the types of jobs men and women on average choose, the type of education they have, sociology versus engineering, etc. Since 1963, it has been unlawful under the Federal Pay Act for an employer to pay a female employee less than a male employee for equal work. Sex discrimination in wages is also prohibited by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. For employers of federal contractors and subcontractors, Executive Order 11,246 prohibits gender pay-based discrimination. Finally, 46 states have anti-discrimination statutes mandating equal pay for equal work. While the enforcement schemes of these laws vary from state to state, the remedies those statutes provide are comparable to those available under federal laws. There is the answer I just stole off the internet. Thanks.
Thank you very much to all of the candidates and to the audience. I thought the questions were just terrific.